I would see this sister moving through the neighborhood and be like, hey, girl, you still coming on? She'd be like, yeah, girl, I'm coming on. She is Kelly Virella. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. She is the executive editor at Capital B News, which I used to say was my favorite Black-owned news media outlet, but we flipping the script here. It's my favorite news outlet,
Okay.
and now my favorite white news outlet is ProPublica. You see how I did that, y'all? You
I
see how
saw
I
how you
did
did that.
that? Welcome, Kelly, editor. Hold on, let me get it correct. Executive editor at Capital B News. It's a real pleasure to have you here. Welcome.
It's so good to connect with you. I'm so glad we finally getting a chance to have this conversation.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I've been a huge fan of Capital B News. We have had Aaliyah Wright, Adam Mahoney. We've had several of the reporters on. They are phenomenal. Their stories are well sourced. They cover them from a perspective that screams us, and I really appreciate the work you all are doing there. Talk to the audience for those who may not know Capital B News. Give us a sense as to the type of coverage you provide and what your role there allows as it pertains to ensuring the stories that matter to our community the most are going to get the access and the amplification that they deserve.
Yeah, well, first of all, I just wanted to thank you for having me on the show
Of
and
course.
saying such kind words about us. Also, I have been a huge fan of yours for years,
Thank you.
going back to your Brooklyn days. So it just feels really good. It's like a full circle moment to come on the show and talk about one of my favorite passions, which is Black media. And look
Mm,
at us,
look at us.
the work, not just us, but also you yourself and the role that you're playing in the ecosystem.
I'm gonna make that a us still because if you all are not here to give us the information and stuff, I talk about what y'all write about. So it's a symbiotic relationship,
Right,
certainly.
exactly. It's the ecosystem, right?
There we
We all
go.
have a niche.
There we go.
So Capital B is a 3-year-old news organization that focuses on Black issues in America. I just really love the work that we're doing. I love how we are getting the opportunity to center Black stories, Black voices, Black people. We are just really taking the time to focus in and tell the stories of Black people in America in a way that you just don't see mainstream newsrooms doing.
Mm.
And I think we're also doing that in a way that's different from the way that legacy Black news organizations have done so as well. Um, our work is very, very centered on community. It's very centered on civic life in Black communities. And we're doing this all with the focus of helping people who are seeking to make changes in their communities. And
Mm.
that's what it's all about. We're not an entertainment driven, like clicks driven, salacious news type news organization. We're really out there doing original reporting in the streets, talking to folks, getting to know people in their communities, listening to them talk about what matters to them and telling those
Mm.
stories.
And one of the reasons we can tell that you all are not a click driven media space is that just when I go to your website, there's not 5011 ads before I get to the content. And I'm not mad at
Right.
people who have to rely on ad, whatever, but you guys are not one of those, ooh, famous person XYZ said this before slapping famous person ABC. Like, y'all don't do that. Y'all do
Yeah.
real
We
news
do real
and content,
journalism.
real
Yeah.
journalism. And you mentioned the word ecosystem. Can you talk with us about why an ecosystem that will feed real journalism is so necessary when it feels like so many ecosystems right now are feeding gossip rags and which might have like a news story a week sort of interspersed within the gossip and that, and y'all, I ain't mad at a good gossip. I like a little kiki and a ha ha and a hoo hoo. But when it comes to understanding what's impacting our community, there's got to be something more. Talk to us about why that difference
There
matters.
does, there does. And like you said, no shade to that type of journalism
Hmm.
because that's also a part of our community and we don't want to throw shade at that.
Right.
But we know we need to have a healthy ecosystem. Just like in a biological sense, if an ecosystem is not functioning healthily, the organisms in that ecosystem will not be healthy either.
Right.
So our whole goal is to balance that ecosystem so that every article that you see or everything that you read about in the news is not about entertainment and stars and celebrities and salacious things that a lot of our media organizations will cover. So
Hmm.
we really try to focus in on that bread and butter, the things that you need to know to participate in our democracy. We're a pro-democracy organization. That is what we're about. And I think one of the things that makes this work possible for us is that we are a nonprofit news organization.
Hmm.
So that's what we do. We raise money in order to be able to tell people these stories. We raise money from foundations. We raise money from major donors. We raise money from the public. Individuals, directly from individuals, give contributions to our organization. And that helps us to remain independent. It helps us to keep our focus on what we think it really needs to be in order for us to bring some balance into this ecosystem, this media ecosystem that we're operating in.
And these stories really matter, right? So like while a lot of folks are focused on the battle with Harvard right now between Harvard and the Trump administration, Capital B is saying one of the headlines: Harvard fights Trump in court. Black students and academics say the real battle is on campus.
I
We've heard
love
a
that
lot.
story.
I love it. I absolutely
Mhm.
love it. We've heard a lot about the fallout as the federal administration has said they are not going to provide FEMA funds to all of the communities that have experienced disasters recently. Your article on front page of your website, Sirens Failed, FEMA didn't show up. Now Black St. Louis recovers from deadly tornadoes alone. Insight into stories that have national implications, but told from our perspective. I learned about Sade Robinson, a Black woman who
Oh
was
God,
was
what a
murdered. An
story.
absolutely horrifying story.
Horrifying.
Her alleged killer, a white man facing life in prison on charges of first-degree international intentional homicide. I did not know this story existed until I got to Capital B News. So
Right.
in addition to providing for a real understanding as to global stories, national stories from our perspective, you're also providing straight up news coverage. And in a time where that seems rare, it feels to me like that is a true value. And you mentioned the fact that you all are a nonprofit organization. So y'all don't go to capitalbnews.com. Go to capitalbnews.org because this is a
.org.
nonprofit. Why does that matter, particularly in light of the economics surrounding journalism and print media or digital print media of the sort that you all do?
Well, I mean, it's no secret that our industry has been in a severe downturn, and this downturn has gone on now for 30 years.
Mm.
We had, the first downturn came along from the Craigslist model, which decimated classified advertising
Wow, I
in
forgot about
newsrooms.
Craigslist.
Yeah, Craigslist, exactly. And
Mm.
then as the internet developed, we saw that social media and search also decimated newsroom revenues over time. And now we're entering a whole new wave of change in which
Mm.
AI is going to change the way the business model for news works.
Wow.
So I think that, the nonprofit world really opens up doors for Black communities. And part of that is that because we don't tend to have communities that have a ton of business revenue that could be utilized to generate advertising to support a Black news organization, it's really important for us to get into a space in which we can actually make our news organizations viable. And that
Mm.
is the role that foundations are playing now. They're realizing that in order for us to have a vibrant and healthy democracy, it's going to be necessary for them to participate and to provide that level of funding and to allow us to be able to build on our relationships with major donors and with individual donors in order to get to where we need to be.
Let's sit in that space for just a little bit. You mentioned AI and the impact it's going to
Mhm.
have on news gathering. This is something that frankly concerns me a lot. Just
Concerns me
because,
too.
yeah, what are some of the threats that artificial intelligence poses to news outlets, either like yours, which function in a nonprofit space, or others that are more in a profit-driven model? And yeah,
Mhm.
I would also remind you that once you go to capitalbnews.org, if you scroll down, you can see a big old sign that says support independent Black-led nonprofit news. Just do with that what you will. But go ahead, Kelly, give us a sense as to the threats that AI poses to newsrooms, regardless of what side of the profit model they sit on.
Right. It's so funny that we're having this conversation because just last week I went to Detroit to meet with some other news organizations to talk about this issue and to talk
Mm,
about the changes that AI is going to bring to our industry. I mean, the bottom line is that we don't know specifically what's going to happen because there's so many different factors at play right now.
yeah.
This could go in one of 16 different possible ways. Like we actually charted out the different scenarios that could
Oh,
take
you aren't
place.
exaggerating. Literally one of 16.
One of 16 different ways, right? I mean, and
Wow.
there are multiple possibilities. It could be even more than 16. But
Mm,
what we do know is that most of them are trending towards major changes in how we um both how we connect with our audiences. I think that's the
Mm.
biggest change that's going to take place. And one of the biggest things that we're concerned about is whether or not AI is going to lead to an intensification in the amount of disinformation that's being produced.
Wow.
Because I mean, before AI, you would actually have to sit down and like have somebody had to like write the disinformation.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was some kind of limit to how much you could produce in a certain time period. Now the taps are just wide open. And I think that with the verification practices that the public has and the amount of time that people spend checking and thinking about what they're consuming,
Mm.
I think that we're entering a very dangerous phase. And we've already been there, but with AI, it just feels even trickier. And
Yeah.
so that is one of the main reasons why I think it's so important for people to identify trusted sources. And in my understanding of the way that younger audiences are connecting with media now is that it does involve going to trusted sources. So for example, you can be a trusted source. People know
Mm.
you, they see you on social media, they hear your podcast, and they say, oh, this is a person whose thoughts and things I can trust. And then when you bring on a news organization like us who actually engages in the facts and verifying the information, that's a way to connecting people with trusted sources. So it comes back to that ecosystem model. And
Yeah.
that's such an important piece of this and how we relate to each other. But yeah, I mean, really helping your audience understand like the importance of verifying the information that you come across and helping people just be aware that there's going to be a glut of this type of
Oof.
misinformation and disinformation specifically targeted to Black communities.
Yes.
Specifically.
And we've seen ever since going back as far as 2016 and before, where we began getting initial reports about the very specific and intentional ways that Black communities were being targeted with
Hmm.
misinformation and disinformation campaigns. Y'all, not even as we talk about regularly, not even from within the country, international actors are
Yes.
very clear about the history of racism in this country and know how to play it like a fiddle, and they're
Mhm.
really good at it. And so it feels to me like we have a very limited amount of time before the next election cycle really kicks into gear. I'm hoping there will be another election cycle, Kelly. I'll be very honest with you. I'm very concerned at watching how this, that I almost said how this military is moving. Whew. May that not be Freudian and or prophetic. Watching how this government has been moving, but assuming that there is going to be an election, it feels like we have a very limited amount of time to
We
build
do.
up those
We
trusted
do.
sources so that our community can respond effectively. What should we in the audience be doing? How do we get to a position where we are better? I almost think of, I've been talking a lot about barbecue this morning because Brian barbecued yesterday, but the seasoning of our brains, the seasoning of our cultural appetites, how do we curate an appetite for trusted voices? Because we don't have a lot of time before the onslaught of mis and disinformation swings back into high gear. They've got billionaires who have already shown they're willing to buy elections and do whatever they can to take advantage of elections. We're seeing reports that now Starlink or they're going to be using what is it, Doge style tactics to confirm voter registration and voter poll accuracy in states like Louisiana. We don't have a lot of time, Kelly. How do we
We do not have a
prepare?
lot of time.
How do we prepare?
We have got to stay connected to our media organizations. We've got
Mm,
to stay connected to our trusted news sources. It's a necessity.
mm,
And if people, in your audience right now don't feel that they have a trusted news organization that they are supporting,
right,
then it's time to get connected and to be following this all along so that we don't want to wait until November 2026.
right.
Even
I
if
don't
you've
want to
already
wait till
made up
November
your mind about how you're
2025.
going to vote, right? Don't wait, right? Don't wait. Even if you've already made up your mind about how you want to vote in midterm elections or whatever local elections are coming, it's still important on a day-to-day basis to stay connected to the story so that when things come out and people are coming at you sideways, you're not taken off guard because you already
Mm,
know the truth. You've already
right,
been following what you're supposed to know about. It is just, I think it is something that is important for us as citizens to take the time every day just to connect, to touch base, to try to understand what is going on in the world around us. It's just
mm,
critical. That's how we maintain democracy.
yeah,
Because there are forces in this country, as we all know, who don't want us to know.
that's right.